Hello everybody, this is Jeff Janess. Welcome to lab exercise number 13 on raster analysis. Here we're going to look at how to modify the hillshade by blurring it a little bit. This is another one of those Swiss method modifications to hillshades. This one's often used to make hillshades a little more subtle, less distinct in a map. And the USGS uses this method a lot in their online topographic maps. Now, blurring the hillshade was first proposed by a fellow named Kurt Brassel back in 1974. His reasoning was more on overcoming problems with the low-resolution dot matrix printers of the time. You can see it in Brassel's manuscript that these printed maps were just not as sharp and clean as they are today, and so he recommended that the printed hillshades be actually photographed with a lens that was a little out of focus, blurs the image enough to hide the dot pattern. So the original reasons for blurring hillshades don't really apply anymore. Doesn't mean that blurring isn't still useful sometimes. Many people do like the aesthetic effect. But just make sure you're doing it because you like the effect and not because you think it's just the way it's supposed to be done. Okay, now we're going to get into how to make this hillshade in just a sec, but I do have a model you can download if you'd like. It's available at this link here in the lab exercise document. The model itself is named Blurred Hillshade. If you download it, you're going to download this raster analysis tools. This is the model that you can download. Now, a nice thing about this model here is that you can just double-click on it. I got some parameters set in the model. You double-click, it'll just run the tool. You can set all the parameters you want and just hit go, and you don't have to worry about all the details. But another nice thing is that you can actually edit it. You can right-click on it, go to Edit. You can see how the model is set up. If you want, you can adjust it, make changes to it, add other processes. Yeah, just have fun with it, but you can use it if you like. Anyway, let's get into the lab exercise here. Now, in this lab exercise, I'm going to be using ArcGIS Pro version 3.3.2, so the tools might look a little different if you're using a different version of the software. Now, we're going to practice this on our 10-meter DEM that we've been using in the other lab exercises in this module. So first thing we've got to do is load that into a map. This DEM is available in the class data folder, so go to class GIS data. It's in the raster functions. Here it is, the DEM 10 meter. So I'm just going to right click on it, say to add to new map. Saves me a step. It makes the map for me and puts the data in. I'm going to change the name of the map so it just helps me keep organized in my project. Okay. Now, we're going to do this in a model so that you can rerun it later if you want. And that means we have to make a model, make a new model. To make a new model, you have to have a place to put it. I am going to use the default toolbox that comes with my project. And you have this yourself. In your ArcGIS Pro project, you do have a default toolbox. This is the one I've got. Now, if you want to make your own toolbox, there's good reasons why you might want to do that. I'm not going to do it in this demonstration, but I do have illustrations here showing how to do that if you want. It's in the lab exercise document. So take a look at that if you have any questions on how to do it. Now, let's start on our model. So I'm going to right-click in here, make a new model. I get a new empty model window. I like to have the toolbar visible in here. You might or might not see it. It's up to you. I'm going to set some properties for my model. I can come here to the Properties button. I'm going to set a name and a label. Now, the name and label are worth understanding. The name is something that ArcGIS Pro uses internally to identify this model. It's not something that we really pay much attention to. We usually go by the label. These things you see up here in Catalog, these are the labels of the models. So we give it a name. Names have rules. You can't have any non-alphanumeric characters. So I'm just going to call it Blurred Hillshade, no space. Now the label, I'm going to put a space in. I'm going to call it Blurred Hillshade, a little friendlier to humans. All right, hit OK. Now I need to save my changes. I can do that here, or I can do it up in the ribbon. Okay, my new model has changed names to Blurred Hillshades. Okay, so all is well. Next step, we start adding processes to it. There's two processes involved here that blur the hillshade. First, we're going to do a focal statistics, which essentially blurs the DEM. Then we're going to calculate a hillshade from that blurred DEM, and that gives us the blurred hillshade. So first off, let's load in the focal statistics process and the hillshade process. We do that. We come to the tools here. We search for focal statistics. Going to use the Spatial Analyst version, and I'm assuming that you have Spatial Analyst licensed and turned on right now. We're also going to load in a hillshade process. Spatial Analyst version. Here we go. All right, so we got our two processes. Now let's set up the parameters. The focal statistics, we're going to set up a circular neighborhood with a radius of 10 cells. And that works pretty well for our DEM that we're going to use in this exercise. Now, you will probably want to change the radius of this for your actual work. You'll probably try a few different numbers before you get one that you're really happy with. So this thing involves a lot of trial and error. Now, anyway, for our example, it's going to be a circular neighborhood, a radius of 10 cells. We're going to calculate the mean. Do ignore no data, that's fine. We have to select our raster, of course. We're going to use the 10-meter raster. And it offered it to us in this drop-down list because we have the raster open in our currently active map back here. So that's how it knew to add it. We're going to call the output raster focal mean temp. Okay, hit OK. All right, so this part's set up. Now we're going to build a hillshade off of this neighborhood mean raster. So I'm just going to draw a line in here. That's going to be the input raster. I'm just going to use the default options for my hillshade. Let's open that up. I'm going to call my output raster blurred hillshade. I'm going to go with the default compass azimuth, the default altitude. I'm not going to model shadows, and I'm going to use a z-factor of 1. The z-factor 1 is appropriate because I happen to know that my raster elevation units are in meters, and I happen to know that it is projected into a coordinate system that's based on meters. So make sure you know that information to choose the appropriate z-factor. If you want to know more about problems that we have with coordinate systems with topographic rasters, take a look at the 4th lecture video in this module. I have a discussion on issues that we face with this. Anyway, this is all set up. I just hit OK. My model is ready to go. I just like it to look a little prettier, so I'm going to hit Auto Layout. Kind of cleans it up a little. One more thing I want to do, I want to make sure that the hillshade will get added to my map after I run it. So if you right-click on this and look for Add to Display, if you click it, it'll be checked now, and now it's supposed to add to the display. I found that sometimes this doesn't work. I'm not exactly sure why not, but it usually does. So anyway, right now if we run this, it should create our blurred hillshade and add it to the map. First thing we do is hit the validate just to look for any obvious errors. Looks okay. We hit run. Goes to work. It's a pretty simple model, not too many steps, so it doesn't take very long. All right. Okay, it looks like it's added it, so let's close this, come to our hillshade. Yep, and there it is. We do indeed have a blurred hillshade. All right, so that's all there is to it. Pretty simple process, and there you go. If you want, you can click this little delete intermediate button. Gets rid of this intermediate focal mean raster because we don't really need it anymore. All right, thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate you sitting through this, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.